My name is Ed Clendenin. It's September 4th, 2009, and we're with the Tulsa Air and Space Museum at the 2009 annual reunion of the 376 Bomb Group. And today I'm with
Bill McDonald.
what was you were with the 376 Bomb Group?
I was with the 376 Bomb Group in 1944.
And what position or what job did you do?
I was a bomb type maintenance officer for the 515th, and also I took over as the armored officer when Ted Osborne left.
I see. So going back in time, were you drafted or did you enlist before Pearl Harbor?
I enlisted before Pearl Harbor.
Before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. I was in Laurie Field when the attack was made on Pearl Harbor.
I see. And what were you doing or at the time? What was your job?
At the time, I was a supply sergeant for one of the squadrons there, school squadron.
I see.
And when we heard the news, everybody run to the shower and got dressed up and headed downtown. And they got as far as the gate and they turned everybody back and we went to work.
Oh, I see. And so how long were you at Lowry Field?
Little over 2 years.
For 2 years?
Yeah.
So what happened, or how did you manage to get an overseas assignment? Did you ask for it or were you just ordered to go over?
I didn't ask for it. I went to the schools
Okay.
there. I went to bomb site maintenance school as the last school. And from there I was selected as what they called a TOCS, and was sent down to Florida to go to school. And we were down there, well, I was down there 6 weeks. But I happened to have some buddies there when I got down there. And instead of doing all the drills and all that, I got put on the laundry truck. And we went into Miami every day to pick up laundry and take laundry in. So we spent most of our time down at the corner bar waiting for the laundry.
I see. Dedicated to so, and then at what point?
Then we were sent up to Yale University for the final
Up in Connecticut?
in Connecticut for the final training on bomb site maintenance.
Okay, so you maintain the Norton bomb site?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I've talked to some bombardiers who said they had to carry a 45 to protect the bomb site because it's so secret. Did you guys have to do the same thing?
No, we didn't. We were studying primarily just the maintenance of it.
I see.
And all, but we were never required to carry a weapon.
Did you know how to use it? Would you know how to was part of the maintenance knowing how to use it?
Well, yeah, you had to learn how to use it.
Yeah, I see.
I didn't use it in flight. We used
Right.
it, simulator.
I see. So when did you go overseas?
I went overseas in 1943 in December.
December 43?
I went over with the 449th Bomb Group, and I was with them until April or May, and was transferred down to 376.
I see. So you went over with the 449.
449th, yes.
And why did they transfer you to the 376 or they just show
They
up?
needed bomb site maintenance
I
officers
see.
in 376.
Okay. And then that's when you went to what, the 514th you said?
No, 550.
550. Okay. And were you there until the end of the
No, I was there in the 515th until December
of
44.
44.
And we were having a lot of problems with the gunners. We were losing a lot of gunners because they were losing their oxygen mask, or they didn't know how to use the guns and what have you. And so I was sent back to the state to go to the gunnery school to go back over and being a gunnery officer.
Really?
And probably would have been in group because we didn't have any other gunnery officers in the group.
In the 376.
Yeah.
So there was, when you say you were losing gunners, I mean they were passing out or they were actually dying?
They were passing out because their oxygen mask was freezing is one of the problems.
Really?
And also they were having problems with the 50 caliber guns freezing at altitude. And they felt too that the gunners need more training in how to use the gun and leads and what have you, because we were getting more attack from the German fighters
Ah.
at that time.
Well, I remember Ray Helbus was talking about that they used to have a problem back in 43 with the guns freezing up at altitude. So was this a different problem or?
No, it was just. It
Same
was
problem?
They were having problems. Part of it was with the grease that they were using. It would have a tendency to freeze. If you had the gun, like if you cleaned it with kerosene as an example, it was dry enough that it didn't freeze. But if you used a little bit of oil on it, you had to watch it or it would freeze.
I would imagine it'd be somewhat intimidating to be standing at your station with a fighter coming at you and having the gun locked up.
Yeah, and you couldn't pull it back to load.
Oh, I see. So you came back to the station to work on the
To go to
problem?
gun. I went to down to Texas, Laredo,
Mm-hmm.
and went through the gunnery school there. It was a strictly officers gunnery school then.
Now, had BE Day happened before they sent you back?
Oh yeah. It was towards the end of the war. Because I started back after I finished school. You know, I started back to join the group, but I never got any farther than New York.
I see.
got to New York, and they kept us there for, I don't know, 3 weeks or so, reporting in every day, and they said, well, we ain't got anything for you, and they wouldn't tell us why. And finally, they sent me down to Hampton Roads, Virginia, and the group was coming in there, and you know, I got the pleasure of running a troop train from Hampton Roads to Hastings, Nebraska.
So did you rejoin the group then when they went
Yes.
to Nebraska? Did you stay with them?
I didn't stay with them very long because they were transferring and working with the B-29s. They went from the 24th to the 29th.
Because they were gonna go out to the Pacific.
That's right, that's right.
Now, would you have gone with them if had they gone to the Pacific?
I probably would, but I was sent then down to Pueblo. They had a gunnery school down there with the B-29s.
Uh-huh.
And they sent us down there as an orientation type course.
So were some of the guys you knew over at San Pan in December, were they on this group that came back in April?
Oh, yeah.
So you knew a lot of the guys that came back? Okay. And then, then when BJ Day, what happened? Did you stay in the service or did you?
No, I stayed in the service.
You stayed, so you retired from the Air Force?
I retired from the Air Force, but many years later.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Now were you an officer when you went over to the 376?
Yeah.
Because you said that earlier, I think you were a sergeant.
I was first lieutenant.
Yeah. But when the war broke out, you were a sergeant, if I remember. Is that right?
No.
You were
Yes,
not-
I was.
And
Yeah,
when you-
I was a buck sergeant.
You were a buck
Staff-
sergeant?
No, I was a staff.
Staff sergeant. So somewhere along you got commissioned before you.
Well, I got commissioned because I went, when I was a supply sergeant, and I went to bomb site maintenance school. And from there, I went to the cadet program.
I see, and that's when you were commissioned.
And, I was commissioned there in February of 43.
February 43, okay. And then you stayed in the Air Force
Yeah.
And I hear you say you retired as a lieutenant colonel?
Yeah.
Okay, and were you always in maintenance, or what other jobs did you do with the Air Force?
Well, I would, if the gunnery program would have continued, I'd have been, of course, went on flying pay.
Oh, okay,
When we graduated from gunnery school.
okay.
But I never did get into any gunnery because after the war, well, that kind of, the wind went out of the sails on that program.
Were you in the service during Korea then?
Oh, yeah.
Did you get sent overseas for Korea, or did you stay in the States?
No, I stayed in the States in that. I was, after we came back, and all, I went to back to Harvard and graduated. Then I got transferred into training command, and when I got into training command, wound up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, closing the base out there, and it got half closed, and they decided, no, they're going to keep it open.
I see.
So then I got sent to school down in Orlando, at the personal affairs school.
Uh-huh.
And I got back from that and back to Albuquerque, and I was there 3 days, and my family was there. And we were downtown having dinner at one of the little restaurants down there. And this lieutenant came up to me and said, I've been looking for you. Said, you're going to Guam right away. So I started clearing the base, and then I got a telegram that I was going to be going to back down to El Paso to preview for a regular commission.
Okay, so going back to your time with the 376, you said you left the 449 in April, I believe?
April, May, I don't remember.
And you transferred to 376?
Yeah.
How far away was the 440? The 449th and the 376 were both in the 47th wing?
Yeah,
right?
they were probably 50, 60 miles apart at most.
Okay, and so then you came down to the San Pan and you stayed there until
Until I went back to the state to go to school.
and you were in charge of the
I was
the
a
bomb
site
bomb
maintenance
maintenance
officer,
officer.
and we had more of a centralized area that did that.
And you were all just for the 515 planes?
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't for the group plane, it was just for the 515.
But we used the same facilities, you know.
Did you associate with your counterparts in the other 3 squadrons, or did you more keep yourself?
Yeah, but we didn't have very much, a whole lot of contact because you were
Okay.
busy within your own. And then the armament officer left, and I moved into that slot, so I spent most of my time loading bombs
And you were also doing the maintenance of the bomb sites too?
but we had good NCOs at that time. I can't recall their name, but so they more or less took that over because.
So now most of your work, I mean, the planes would fly during the day, and then most of your work from night
yeah.
until the.
Our work was more at night than it was during the day. We loaded the bombs, and they'd change missions in the middle of the night. And you might be working all night changing bomb loads, and bombs laying all around the hard stands, and all which would never work today.
Well, I've read some of the diary. They'd load the bomb for one type of mission, and they'd get a phone call from
That
HQ
time
and
loaded,
said load something else and
yeah,
change the fuses and do all kinds of stuff.
and they didn't have time to haul all those bombs back, so they were laying all around the hard stand.
I see. So, now, would you be responsible then for checking the airplane out before the crew showed up to make sure the plane was ready, or was that?
Well, the regular engineer for the airplane
Would do that.
check it, but we were responsible for hanging the bombs and being sure that they were safe. Like you've got the safety wires and all that would go through the fuses to keep
Uh-huh.
them from arming during flight and this kind of thing.
And was you also responsible for putting gun belts into the gun turrets?
Well, the gunners did
Gunners
that.
did that.
We loaded the ammo.
Onto the plane?
On the plane, yeah.
Okay. So I probably imagine it was pretty hectic at night running around.
Oh, yeah. And especially when they got to changing missions. And sometimes we had as many as 2 or 3 changes and all, because they changed targets.
Now, did you have, maybe not you, but did the enlisted men were they assigned to a specific airplane? Or did you just move
We had
around?
crews.
Crews that they were assigned to a
Yeah.
specific airplane?
Yeah.
But you were kind of over them?
Yeah.
Okay. And did the ground crews develop an affinity or I'm not sure what the term is for that?
With the crews.
Yeah, with their airplane?
Oh, well, they did to a degree, but for your crews and your airplane changed.
Oh, yeah, the flight crews.
Because you had
yeah.
people rotating off
Right.
and going home all the time after they completed their missions.
But did the ground crews,
The ground crew stayed.
but they work on the same airplane until it was either lost or retired or replaced out?
Yeah.
Okay, so the crews
Well,
had,
we had crews that just went around to different airplanes. In other words, you loaded this airplane, let's say we had 3 crews.
Yeah,
We load 3 airplanes and then we just,
I see.
depending on how many we had to do each night.
Because I've talked to a couple of crew chiefs and they would say, yeah, I was crew chief on this particular airplane.
Oh, well, now on your aircraft maintenance, yes.
Oh, that was-
They had
okay.
crews assigned to each airplane.
So the maintenance were on specific,
Yeah.
but the armament guys rotated around.
Yeah, we had a group of people,
I see,
armors that went around and did them all.
I see. Okay, and the same way with the bomb sight.
Site maintenance officer, yeah.
What other,
Usually you didn't have a lot of, you just checked out unless you had some problem with the bomb sight or the autopilot. You didn't bother the airplane.
now, in today's lingo, when the pilots come back from a mission, they call us squawk the airplane, they'll tell the group ground crew what's wrong with the airplane. Did
Oh,
they do
yeah.
that back
Oh, yeah.
then?
Yeah.
Okay, so the pilots and the co-pilots.
Like intelligence reports, if there were, if there was damage to certain parts of it and what have you, then if we had a report of a problem, then we had to get on it and take care of it.
For the next mission.
And we did that for the next mission.
Now,
Cleaning guns, after every mission, we had to clean the guns,
that's
And
what I was.
I remember one mission that came back on, they got back late, and we went out and unloaded all the ammo, got it out, for safety. But they didn't swab the barrels out of the machine guns. And the IG came in the next day and run a swab through one, and there's that little bit of rust in there. And we got in a lot of problems with that.
Now I remember seeing some World War II type movies and the planes take off in the morning for the target and it shows the ground crew standing around playing baseball and playing catch. Was that the way it was like,
Yeah.
waiting for the planes to come back?
They did whatever, some of them go to town, and go back to the bed. And,
I would say, when did you normally sleep? During the day?
well, during the day, yeah.
And did you all stand out at the runway waiting for the planes to come back and
Most
count
of
them?
them. Most of them.
And could you identify your planes in the air?
Oh, well, not.
No, I mean when they were coming around ready to
Oh, you
land.
could, yeah. I remember one time, this plane, it wasn't our airplane, I think it was the 512. They took off for a mission, and they got out, I don't know how far, but anyhow, they came back in, and they didn't go out over the Adriatic and drop their bombs. And they came in and landed on the runway, and when they did, something happened, they blew a tire, and they went off the edge of the runway, and got on the edge of the runway, and the nose wheel collapsed. They stood right up on their nose, and about the time they stood up like that, the airplane exploded.
Oh my gosh.
And that's a.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I'll never forget that one.
Well, that would be something you wouldn't, I assume that didn't happen very often. I mean,
No, that's the only time I ever saw it happen.
now, I assume the usual practice, if they didn't drop their bombs, was to drop it out over the Adriatic? So they didn't bring their bombs back? They just
Normally,
dropped
no, for safety reasons.
Yeah, they just dropped them. So apparently, for some reason or other, this crew decided to bring their bombs back.
Well, yeah, they had airplane problems, and they just didn't
Just
take
didn't
the
drop
time
it.
because it was, you had to fly out over the water to get
Yeah.
back in.
Interesting.
I don't know all the details of it.
Right.
I understand they have built a memorial on that particular site, and it is still there.
Really? Okay. Because there were, some of the gentlemen went back to San Pan.
Yeah.
Were you with them?
No,
Okay.
we tried to get another trip lined up to go back over there, but we could never get enough people to make it worthwhile. But it's when Shirley Callaghan was our hostess, so to speak.
She was one who used to do the reunions also, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
She's one that arranged that original trip.
Oh, okay. Are there any other incidences or life about the camp that you want to talk about or you found was interesting, or what was your relationship with the Italians? Or,
We didn't have much contact with the Italians.
Okay.
We had this Italian, he was one of our cooks, he spoke Italian. I can't even remember his name now, but he did all the arrangements with the Italians, you know, like if we wanted food and stuff like that, he'd go out and make the arrangements for it.
But there wasn't much maintenance.
Not too much, not that I knew about anyway.
Did you travel around to some of the other towns? I've heard people talk about going to Leachy or going up to Barry or R&R.
I went to Barry quite often.
Did you?
But I was going up there on business because I had a buddy that was in the depot up there.
I see.
And we had a little problem getting supplies, so I would go up and scrounge a few parts and bring them back down. It kind of helped us keep our maintenance
I
going.
see. Because Barry was the head of the 15th Air Force, if I'm not.
Well, that's where the depot and all was.
Was it?
We had a little problem with storage areas around, so we down from our area, there was a little creek that went under the road that went down there, and it was just right to store a few items of turret repair and all this kind of stuff in. And we used to store stuff in there. And at the same time, the IG was down there in Coffee Southern, they happened to look under there. And I think that's what got me fired from, because we had spare parts under there we weren't supposed to have and all this kind of stuff. In fact, I happened to have a spare bomb sight around it, but they didn't find it.
They didn't find it.
No, they didn't find it.
Now, did you maintain contact with the guys that were in your group, or I don't know?
Well, we used what we had was a group officers club.
Yeah.
We got together over there.
Now, after the war, did you maintain contact with your fellow ground crew?
Not very much.
Not very much.
Everybody split up and whatever.
Because I remember talking to some of the air crews. They do remember. I mean,
Oh, well, the air crews, they bonded together. And that's really one of the things that has kept the organization going, which has been the air crews.
air crew.
'Cause we don't have very many of the ground crew people that come.
So you never maintained contact with?
Not with them, no. Like our communications officer and our munitions officer and intelligence. Well, now I kept up with Jack Preble for a long time. When I was stationed in Dayton, I'd see Jack and Wiley Golden every once in a
Because
while.
Jack was the publicity officer,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
No, he was the intelligence officer.
Intelligence officer.
Yeah.
Okay. Because Preble wrote "Written in the Sand," if I'm not mistaken. Did Jack write that?
I don't remember.
Okay. And both of them were instrumental in getting the organization started.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and Tim Holt.
And Tim Holt.
I think Tim was responsible for getting it regenerated. You know, at one time, they had a meeting, the only one I ever attended was in Detroit in 1950. And I never heard any more about the organization until, a number of years later.
It started back up, I guess, in the mid-'80s.
Yeah, and Tim Holt was one of the ones that got it going again.
And you served as a president of the organization, right?
I was president in 1992 and 93.
I see. Okay. Trying to think.
There's one incident,
Oh.
that the other incident I
Go ahead.
always remember. One of the airplanes needed a autopilot check. It had some problems with it. And the pilot and the engineer usually would do it unless they needed some help, and one of the guys would go. But at this particular day, we couldn't find anybody, and he wanted to get the pilot checked out. So he and I took the airplane and took off and got the check done. And we were coming back into the base. I don't know, we were probably 10,000 foot, somewhere along there. And he leaned over to me and said, "You ever land a B-24? And I said, "I've never been at the controls of a B-24, let alone land one." And he said, well, you just may have to land one, because he said, my face is getting all screwed up, I can't see right, and he could hardly talk. And so I said, well, I don't think we got much choice. I guess we can try. So he called the tower, and we lined up with the runway, and it would talk us in, and we were down to, I guess about 1,000 foot or somewhere thereabout, but we were making a long approach. And he leaned over to me, he said, boy, you're saved. He said, I can see, hear, and do everything now. So he took over and landed.
I bet you that was a few tense
That was
moments.
a thrill of a moment, I'll tell you.
Now, was that the first time you'd gone up for a ride like that, or?
No, that wasn't the first time, but usually you had the airplane engineer and on with you. So most of the time you'd have a co-pilot, but he couldn't find anybody, so we just went.
Just the two of you?
Was not the real thing to do.
Was that the last time you did it without a
That's the
co-pilot?
last time.
Now, the flight engineer could fly the plane, couldn't?
Well,
the flight
I
engineer
don't-
fly the plane?
They could. I don't know very many of them that landed the airplanes, but
But they could fly.
they could fly it, and they handled the airplane a lot of times in the air.
So what was it like to fly an airplane under, I mean, were you actually sitting there with the
Well,
controls?
I was but I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, but you didn't crash the plane.
I was going to try to land it.
So, okay, was it easy to fly?
Huh?
Was it easy to
It
fly?
wasn't too bad to fly.
Wasn't too bad to fly. So the pilot set up on final approach and you were just kind of keeping it?
Yeah, well, he was in touch with the tower all the time and told him we needed to make a low approach. And they knew what the situation
Sure.
was. You know, but it worked out fine.
Okay, well, that's good. Any other interesting little stories like that from your days overseas?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember any.
Well, that sounds pretty harrowing, so. Well, I can't think of anything else that there's else to add. I guess we'll appreciate your service and your time you've taken here to get interviewed. And,
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
well, you're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Okay.